Thanks for coming so I can tell you about the FHIR Foundation. Okay. So, I'm going to tell you about the FHIR Foundation, and this is from the FHIR.org, so FHIR.org, that is. So this is from the website. The mission of the FHIR Foundation is to enable health interoperability using FHIR. We promote global adoption and implementation of the FHIR platform standard. The Foundation provides information, education, tools, websites, project support that helps the FHIR community collaborate, align and expand. The Foundation seeks to improve the interoperability of healthcare data with the goal of improving quality, efficiency and effectiveness of healthcare. So I'll tell you about what HL7 is, why HL7 has a FHIR Foundation, and what the FHIR Foundation does. And I'm happy to take questions as we go. Just feel free to raise your hand. So FHIR is a specification published by HL7. So FHIR's always, I always say FHIR is two things. It's actually a community first. A community of people who want to interoperate with their data and converging around FHIR. So the technical specification is just the written record of what the community agreed to. So the community is the most important asset that we have. Now, the community meets under the umbrella of HL7. HL7 is a standards organisation, and we publish standards. That's our mission, and we have global reach and members and affiliates from all around the world. HL7 is a not-for-profit, a non-governmental organisation, and the healthcare standards that we publish are adopted in nearly every country in the world. And a lot of people, when they first ring to HL7, they're like, 7, what's the 7 bit? So this is a very old network diagram from the 1970s about how you would build a network before networks were known. And there's 7 layers of of allowing applications to talk to each other. And they talk here about how to physically transfer information, about how to address information. And we're not interested in those things. Whereas HL7 is saying we're interested in level 7, data exchange between applications, assuming they have some kind of network support. HL7 occasionally publishes level 6 specifications, but we're trying to only talk about applications. So HL7 is a membership-based organisation. We have vendors, universities, academics, governments, independent contractors, providers and payers are all members of HL7. As a member of HL7, you get the right to use the standard. Actually, that's what you used to get. Now we give our standards away. Anybody can use them. As a member of HL7, you get the right to vote on who leads the standards, who leads HL7, and you get a right to vote on the standards themselves. So if you're not a member, we're happy to receive feedback from you, we're happy to hear from you, but when we make decisions, that is the HL7 members. Members pay a fee, and the fee basically runs the secretariat, which is, it's actually a pretty big business, running plenty of standards on a worldwide scale, holding meetings, publishing, doing our legal compliance. It's a lot of work. So that's professional support is provided by, to do all that work, is provided by HQ, which is based in USA, and a few other ring-ins around the world doing technical work. For instance, I'm contracted to HQ to do the product and technical administration for the FHIR specification. So HL7 International is based in USA, US organisation, but we have affiliates from around the world. There's 30-something affiliates. The number changes on a regular basis, so 33 might be last week's news. The affiliates represent the interests of the country to HL7 and the interests of HL7 and its community to the country. Education, marketing, the affiliates Some of them translate or localise the specifications. This is what it looks like to use HL7 in this country. And some affiliates create their own standards and market and sell their own standards. And the affiliates must be a non-governmental organisation that has a formal agreement with HL7. So that's HL7. HL7 is built from ground up to publish documents. That's what we do, we publish documents. Our product model is built around the process of creating community consensus and publishing documents. All of our processes, our project approval projects, our processes, our performance appraisals, everything is geared around producing, following a standards process, documents that represent the standards. And HL7 publishes a GOM, Governance and Operations Manual, that all of our work is bound by. And it's our core business to do this, and this is what we're good at. And we need to be good at it because we're subject to external review. So there's an independent body, ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, that reviews HL7's performance on a regular basis. That means they go through our documentation with a toothpick. They say, are you following your procedures? Demonstrate that you're following your procedures. Demonstrate that you're transparent. Demonstrate that your members know what's going on and are properly consulted, and that you have followed all of your interest, all your processes to resolve conflicts of interest and preponderance of interest, and to make sure that the standards process is fair and reasonable and reliable. And that's a really big deal. And it's very common to hear in committee, we need to get our paperwork right, because ANSI can revoke HL7's license to publish standards that can be used in government standards in USA. And it's kind of cool because the rest of the world gets that service for free. Right? We provide our global standards service to the world, but USA pays the cost of compliance. Pretty cool, right? So all of HL7's, everything that we do is geared to meet that. Okay? And this is a slide that I typically show about what FHIR actually is. FHIR is a community and a technical specification. We publish specifications based on the web technology stack, and we publish technical specifications that cover healthcare. And we're a community built using web community tool development framework, and we are linked heavily to to the health community around the world. It's really annoying, sorry about that. And if you think about what I've just talked about in terms of what HL7 does, HL7 doesn't do all of this. When we built FHIR, we said, if you have a standards process and you write standards in some corner room and you follow your transparency processes and no one cares because no one's looking, you publish standards and then everyone ignores them. Typically they say about 90% of startups fail, and publishing a standard is like creating a startup. 90% of your standards just fall on their face and get totally ignored. Right? 2 or 3 institutions implement them, no one else ignores, everyone else ignores them, and then that's it. Countless hours and cost and heartache wasted. And we said we have enough of that in healthcare. What we want is to create standards that everybody pays attention to. And so that's where we built the community, and we said you have to have this integrated process between the development of the standard, the implementation community. You have to really build a very implementation-focused community. And that's what we built with FHIR. But you can see that some of what we do with FHIR is outside what HL7 does. And so you face a choice. Do you as HL7 say, hey, what we're going to do is rework all of our governance, procedures and policies and processes so that we don't only publish standards. We do other things as well. But actually that starts creating problems because you're diluting the vision of HL7. And now you're saying, well, How are those things subject to ANSI review? Does ANSI tell us, does all of the legal compliance costs of conforming to ANSI apply to those community building exercises? That's been a challenge for HL7 for many years, and we haven't been able to resolve that. And HL7 keeps falling over trying to create that kind of community because of all those legal compliance issues. So we said we're going to actually split our activities. The standards activities belong in HL7, and HL7 should be good at that. But the community building activities, the community support activities, we're not going to put them in HL7, we're going to put them in the FHIR Foundation. So let me tell you about the FHIR Foundation. As I said, the FHIR community as a whole publishes standards. But actually, we publish FHIR, it's the FHIR specification itself, and we publish a number of national implementation guides. As in, HL7 publishes national implementation guides. Either HL7 itself or the HL7 affiliates publish national implementation guides, and they get balloted through HL7. And that's a service that HL7 offers to its member countries and affiliates. You can ballot your national specifications through HL7. And a few HL7 USA ballots its specifications through HL7 full, and the affiliates mostly run their own ballot process. And then we offer project-specific implementation guides. We say to any group of people, any group of companies, any group of individuals, you want to work together, we'll publish your implementation guides. And you, as members of HL7, have the right to say, we'd like an implementation guide about X, and we'll ask HL7 to ballot it. There's a cost, but we think the cost's worthwhile, so we'll pay it. It's not like you have to pay HL7 cash. The cost is in-kind contributions. We have to do the work to meet the legal compliance requirements and so forth, but we want to do that, and so we're going to ballot it through HL7. But there's a lot of people who go, no, we don't want to do that. We just want to, a few of us want to write it and publish it, and so they don't get published through HL7. And that's where the FHIR Foundation starts to come in. So I want to talk about that process a little bit more. If you look at the standards process, you say, we're going to form an agreement. And then we're going to write down the agreements so everybody can get in on it. And you know, if there's two or three of it, if it's me, and it's Bryn, and it's Ashley, then we just sit down at the table, do it between ourselves, publish it, done. Well, we do it today. It doesn't need a lot of work, it doesn't need a lot of infrastructure. But for every individual that you add to that picture, every company that you add to that picture, every national government that you add to that picture, the weight increases, the process gets harder, the amount of consultation, and it grows exponentially. So what this diagram is showing is that as the community grows, the difficulty of getting agreements or changing agreements once you've got them, it starts to go up exponentially. And then you say, well, there's a set amount of cost for having a standard for trial use. To create the community, to exercise the process, to have the editorial support, to get everybody to go through the balloting process, it costs you a set amount of money. And it's only at some point of the size of the community where it becomes worth going through that process. But this is the process that HL7 runs. So if the size of your community is smaller than this point here, it's not worth going through HL7. But if the size of your community is bigger than this, it's worth going through HL7. That makes sense? And so what we're saying is that there's a certain kind of set of standards where the size of the community justifies the cost of a balloted standard. But there's a lot of projects where the size of the community doesn't justify the cost of a balloted standard. But it's still useful for them to collaborate and publish their agreements so other people can get in on it and implement them. HL7 doesn't have an answer for that question because HL7 does balloted standards. That's where the FHIR Foundation comes in. But we do more, so we publish agreements, specifications, implementation guides for smaller communities. And I'll talk shortly about the best example to date of a community like that. But we do more than publish standards. the FHIR community runs all social media that supports the FHIR community. And I've got a list of those shortly. We foster and support mini communities that meet under the umbrella of the FHIR community. And a lot of those just meet informally on Julep or on the side at HL7 meetings. I mean, more than a few people in the room have told me they're having side meetings at this meeting, and that's what we're for, right? That's what we do. We hold side little mini communities that host informally on our community process. But we also have a few formal communities where they've wanted a specific presence. We say, great, we'll host that. What we do for you is we provide the trusted third party. We provide access to the community. We provide the ability to interact with the experts, to feed your feedback back into the full FHIR process, and we provide the ability to test, to give you access to connectathons, to give you access to publish your specifications and have them endure after your interest moves on. Because then who maintains them? That's what the FHIR Foundation can do. And in addition, we can host test service, conformance tooling, publishing structure, and in fact, we could even host, on behalf of other parties, we could host trading servers that actually support real patient data. We don't do that at the moment, but if a consortium came to us and said, well, actually, we're looking for a neutral third party to host and govern such a server like that, we'll go, okay, that's the kind of thing we do. Obviously, we have to talk about funding and provisioning it, but the governance, that's what we exist to do, is provide those kind of services. So, the FHIR Foundation says, let HL7 be good at publishing standards. That's what we want HL7 to do. We'll create the FHIR Foundation to support the community, to catalyse, publish and curate implementation guides. Now, some of those implementation guides, people said, oh, we've just got a small community, there's only a few of us, we don't want to have to go through the ballot process. Well, right, don't go through the ballot process, we'll host them in the FHIR Foundation. And so they do, and they go, that's really good, and then suddenly everybody's interested, everybody wants in on the show, and they're going, oh, actually it turns out there's much more interest than we thought. And you go, okay, well maybe it's actually worth, since the community's growing organically, to actually elevate to an HL7 standard. Not usually go the other way, but we can do that. We can say, hey, this was an informal agreement amongst a group of people that was mediated by the FHIR Foundation, but you know, it's actually worth making it a real standard, so we'll toss it over to HL7. We support specific projects and provide ongoing infrastructure support, and the best example of this is Argonaut project. How many people have not heard of the Argonaut project? Yeah, there's a couple, okay. So, Argonaut project was a agreement between a set of US vendors that provide EHRs, sell EHRs, around a common API that they would all support using FHIR to provide patients access to their data. So there's really just a process of saying this subset of the FHIR infrastructure we'll use, and then we'll test and make sure that we're all providing a consistent API. They never wanted a formal standard. There is no formal Argonaut standard. It's not a balloted document. And so they came to HL7 and we said, okay, what we'll do is really it's a FHIR Foundation project, and it's migrating to be a FHIR Foundation project now that we actually have a FHIR Foundation. Because it took us a long time to actually get the FHIR Foundation set up. But they said it was just us, and so they have phone calls, they have social media support, they have a channel on Julep, they publish an implementation guide which is published on FHIR.org, and that's the Argonaut agreements. And so that's a classic FHIR Foundation project. And then it turned out that, well, when all of the big US EHR vendors formed a bunch of agreements about how they're going to use FHIR and how they're going to meet their regulatory use cases and so forth using FHIR, turns out that's kind of influential. It's pretty influential indeed. In fact, that's pretty much going to drive FHIR usage in USA. And so then we took that and we said, okay, now we're going to take that and we actually make it into the formal US implementation guide. So the US core grew out of the Argonaut project. So we took the core of the Argonaut project, threw it over the wall to HL7 and created the formal US implementation profile for all of FHIR. Some parts of Argonaut stayed in Argonaut because they're the EHR specific agreements. But the rest, we said, well, they're going to become the national US agreement. And so we pulled them over and put them in HL7, where the core business of a patient portal stayed in the Argonaut project. And that's a FHIR Foundation project. So the FHIR Foundation provides the community with a set of ongoing services. First of all is the website itself, www.fhir.org, which is the official presence of the FHIR Foundation. And we provide a calendar of FHIR events for the community. If you know of any events that are not on there, because that's a fairly recent thing, if you know of any events, tell me about them, or tell Wayne, who's also here, about them, and we'll add them to the calendar. And basically, we will add any event that is run by HL7 or an affiliated standards organisation or an HL7 affiliate or a member of the FHIR Foundation, which I'll get to what that means later. We run the registry.fhir.org, which is the formal location where everybody should register their profiles and their value sets and so forth, and let everybody find how other people are solving problems in detail. And that's also a register of implementation guides. We run chat.fhir.org, which is Julep, which is the most used communication tool within the FHIR community. It's pretty busy. We also run community.fhir.org for people who aren't really part of the community but are implementing FHIR to ask questions. We run test.fhir.org and happy.fhir.org, which are testing public test servers for everybody to use. We run tx.fhir.org, a terminology server that supports all of the terminology work done within the tooling in the community for FHIR. It's not intended for production terminology server use, although there's people running the same software in production, but it's publicly available terminology server for everybody to use for infrastructure and community development. We run build.fhir.org, which is where all the current version of the implementation guides and the specification are published. It's our CI build structure. And we will run devices.fhir.org, the home for the devices community within the FHIR community. So that's the set of ongoing services that we provide. Almost all of those services are provided, actually hosted in the cloud by Google. Google gave us cloud infrastructure to support that, and we appreciate Google's support greatly, particularly me, since it was coming out of my pocket prior to that and was starting to get really expensive. So the foundation itself is a not-for-profit registered as a 501c3 in USA. So that means that donations and membership for the FHIR Foundation are tax deductible for individuals and for corporates. And some countries, I don't know about Europe, but some countries have reciprocal arrangements around that, so that applies to other countries beyond just USA. HL7 is not a 501c3. In the US, 501c3 organisations are not allowed to do political lobbying. HL7 does political lobbying, so it's not a 501c3, but the FHIR Foundation is. And that's, again, a difference in focus between HL7 and FHIR Foundation. The FHIR Foundation is not going to be doing political lobbying, it just supports existing organisations to use FHIR. The FHIR Foundation has a board. The board was established by HL7 and the FHIR community, and the board members are listed here. Stan Huff is the chair, Chuck Jaffe, Russ Leftwich, Dave Shaver, Viet Nguyen, Ewart Kramer is here, so is Chuck Jaffe here, myself, Nikki Tripathi, who runs the Argonaut project, Pat Van Dyke as the chair, Paul Biondich from the FNMRS community, Todd Cooper, who's here, Ed Hammond and One Cubic, who's here. That's the board. I think I got everybody. HL7 provides secretariat support to the FHIR Foundation. and we publish the board minutes on the FHIR.org website. You're all welcome to go and look at the board minutes if you really, really care. It's a transparency thing. Now, the FHIR Foundation accepts, at this time, individual members. So any of you in this room, is anyone in this room actually a member of the FHIR Foundation already? All right, quite a few, good. You can all go and join the FHIR Foundation. And that costs you at the moment $250 US per year. We might hike that up, but we'll see how that goes. And you'll be called a founding member if you join at this time as a member. I forgot to get to this slide. The contributions that you make sustain the ongoing viability of the FHIR Foundation. So at the moment, the FHIR Foundation costs are the legal fees and accounting fees to actually exist. Right, that's our cost base at the moment, and that's where we are. We don't have, and then all of the computing infrastructure, as I said, is donated to us by Google, which is actually, we're not using all of our allowance yet, but it's quite a substantial allowance that they've given us in terms of cloud infrastructure. We would like to beef up the community services that we provide, but we're not funded to do so at the moment. So if we get enough members, then we can actually start building more member services. There's a long list of things that I'm supposed to add to FHIR.org, or someone's supposed to add, but we don't have any resources to do that. So at the moment, the membership that we're getting, we have enough individual members, I think at the moment, to cover our ongoing legal costs. I'm guessing, actually, we haven't actually done that. We've got a board meeting this evening, and just one day will come up. As a member of FHIR.org, you get a number of benefits. So I'm supposed to fill them out here, and I was working on my other presentations. Sorry about that. So, as members, I write a monthly review of all the activities within the FHIR community that I know of. I write that review for the HL7 leadership, and I have been doing that on a monthly basis for a couple of years now. So it covers what events were held, what the outcomes of the events were, what are the running issues in the community, what things have we achieved, milestone implementations, ongoing challenges, future events that are coming up. It's a summary of what's going on in the community. If you are a member, you get access to my monthly reports to see what's happening in the community. If you're a member, you get the right. You also get access, to 2 different forums that we're running on FHIR.org, member forums. One is where we discuss the FHIR Foundation itself and what the future activities of the FHIR Foundation should be, potentially what projects we might take on, and I've got a long list of things I'd love to see us take on, but it'll be member-based projects that take that on. The other forum that we run is a marketplace. People looking for work for people to do FHIR work. So that's sort of starting to actually increase in frequency. It used to be that people would ask me in person once every 6 months. But now it's sort of once a month someone writes to me and says, well, I'm looking for someone to do X, and maybe it's a bit more than once a month now. And so now what I do is we're starting to put them on the FHIR marketplace so that FHIR Foundation members get first look at those opportunities. They're usually contract opportunities to do some FHIR implementation work. Might be a mix of consulting and specification writing and testing assistance and so forth. And so yeah, FHIR Foundation members get first look at those. And when we have enough members and we really have a working process, we might say that you have to be a FHIR Foundation member to advertise there. You also get, although we haven't figured out exactly how this works, but when we start rolling over board members and starting board member elections, it'll be FHIR Foundation members that vote on who's going to be in the board and can put up people to be on the board. There's one other membership privilege, which is if you are a member, your organisation is able to agree to hold events that are marketed in association with the FHIR Foundation. So we'll actually market the event and there's be discounts for FHIR Foundation members. And if you're a member, your organisation is able to ask FHIR Foundation to host an implementation guide produced by your organisation. So if you look at the FHIR Foundation, at the FHIR.org website right now, we host implementation guides produced by two organisations, by the Argonaut project, which is a FHIR Foundation project, and by HSBC, which is a US-based consortium trying to get a further, deeper interoperability than where Argonaut aims at. And so, and a member of the HSBC consortium is a member of the FHIR Foundation, and so they are able to ask us to host that implementation guide. Those are the main member benefits, but one of the member benefits is access to the discussion forum about the foundation, and people are welcome to join in there and make additional suggestions for other member services, and we're still talking about some additional member services. And of course, the most important member service of all is the knowledge that you've contributed to supporting the FHIR Foundation's supporting the FHIR community, because basically we depend on people contributing for that. You'll note that what I talked about to this point is individual membership. I haven't talked about corporate membership. We're still talking about what it would look like for a company to join and become a corporate member of the FHIR Foundation. It's a bit of a sensitive subject because a couple of companies we've talked to have said, oh yeah, that's really great, we'll stop being HL7 members and be FHIR Foundation members instead. And well, that's not such a good thing for HL7. And so we're still talking about what that might mean to be a corporate member. What we can say is that in as much as the FHIR Foundation takes on specific corporate projects, for instance, Argonaut, the Argonaut members, the people interested in the corporations interested in the Argonaut project, pay for that project, right? Membership doesn't pay for the specific projects. And we're still talking about the benefits and roles for corporate sponsors. So open issues, we have a number of open issues. What's the division of responsibilities between the FHIR Foundation and HL7? When it comes to standards, it's really clear. HL7 does the standards, FHIR Foundation does the implementation. But there's some activities that HL7's done which kind of cross the border, and so we're still trying to figure that out, like education and testing. We're still talking about how to increase member value, the corporate members, as I said. We're still figuring out how to scale the FHIR Foundation activities, and we're talking on an ongoing basis about how the FHIR Foundation can help the community, and I'm very happy to receive feedback from any of you about that now or this week, and I've got a couple of minutes for questions. If anybody has any questions. Yeah. Hello, by the way.
Hi, Grahame. I'm chair of HL7 UK now. So as an
affiliate, really? Sorry.
A lot of the somebody has to. As the UK affiliate, a lot of the things that we're doing in terms of education promotion seem to overlap heavily with the FHIR Foundation. What would you see the long-term sort of relationship between affiliates and the FHIR Foundation being?
That's a really good question. I should have put on the open issues. HL7 Australia have asked me about becoming an affiliate of the FHIR Foundation as well as HL7 because of exactly what you just said, and I think we're going to talk about it at the board meeting this evening and think about that. And it is true that some of the affiliates are kind of like local foundations, right? So hopefully we can have some kind of collaborative arrangement, but that's all I can say at this point. Any other questions? All right, question for you. How many of you would consider being a foundation member? A few, good. I encourage you to come and join. You can just sign up through HL7. The sign-up process is not perfect yet. You have to sign up through HL7 first and then sign up at HL7 on FHIR.org. I'm still trying to nail down all of the technicals there. Ren?
Maybe a suggestion that members who've signed up or are signing up, let's say in the near future, they remain the current membership fee.
I think that's the plan. I'm not sure though, but I think that's the plan. Yeah. By the way, if you sign up as a foundation member, you also get to use in your LinkedIn or equivalent. You get a little badge you can use to say I'm a FHIR Foundation member. Well, you can put that on your resumes as well if you want to. Bryn.
Will the certification? So HL7 is doing proficiency and certification badges, and those are all linked, as far as I can tell, with the FHIR Foundation as well. So like the badge that I get for being a FHIR Foundation member shows up on my LinkedIn, but also the proficiency exam stuff from HL7. Are those? I mean, I guess it's kind of the same question as the UK code. Those aren't competing, right? They're not. It's not like there's HL7 is trying to get me to do this, and the FHIR Foundation is trying to get me to do that, right?
No, we are trying to get you to do that together, and we have not yet figured out exactly where some of those things land in terms of responsibility for marketing and administration and cost bearing and profit bearing. That's open issues that we'll be talking about at the board meeting this evening. But you know, the worst thing that could happen would be for HL7 and the FHIR Foundation to fall out of step with each other, and so the board, a certain number of the board are locked into being HL7 board members to ensure that we don't start, you know, disagreeing with each other. Because clearly the whole grounds of everything I've talked about is the FHIR Foundation and HL7 have to be partners really deeply. We just, you know, we have a different focus, but we share a heap of stuff. Ren?
Maybe one of the, HL7 UK or one of the affiliates could be a member of the board to prevent any collision of conflict of interest.
There's certainly, I mean, one of the problems I have with figuring out what exactly the role of the affiliates with regard to the FHIR Foundation is there's a big question about what the role of the affiliates, well, the situation of affiliates is in HL7 itself. Right, that's an ongoing discussion. And I don't know, and it's been an ongoing discussion for a long time because there's some hard stuff to solve and I don't want to get brought into that personally. Looks like we have run out of time. Okay. Thank you, everybody.